Hello, welcome to the colorless slash land section of the Lords of Limit, or not the Lords of the Rings set review. I'm not a member of the Lords of Limited. Shout out Lords of Limited though, they're pretty cool guys. Ethan and Ben, all that good stuff, gumption, whatnot. Um, Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle Earth set review. This is a set review where I review the cards before they come out in limited and talk about them and how I think they're gonna do. And I'm wrong a lot, so if you like that, that's what's going on here. If you haven't been around here before, here's how I rate the cards. I'll hide myself so you can actually see what the things say. Basically, tier 1 is good cards, tier 5 is bad cards. And then there's sort of like descriptions of what the cards, what that sort of means, you know. What the cards are. Here's the first card. Andreal Flame of the West. 3 mana for an equipment. 3 colorless mana. The equipped creature gets +3/+1 whenever a equipped creature attacks. Create 2 tapped, 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. If that creature is legendary, instead create 2 of those tokens that are tapped and attacking. I mean, equip for 2. I mean, like, what what more do you want, right? This is basically a sword. From the sword cycle, in terms of its power level, 3 to cast, 2 to equip. It's just a complete nightmare. If this ever gets to attack one time, it just makes enough spirits for it to be able to attack for the entire rest of the game, and your opponent just is like, well, the hope I didn't have to ever if this ever gets through, it's just like it's insane. Like, your opponent just never has any chance of stopping the onslaught if it gets through even one time. So it's just a tier 1 card, super difficult to beat, especially again in a slower format with lower power level. This is one of those cards that stands out. Barrowblade. 1 colorless mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. It is equipped for 1. When a equipped creature blocks or becomes blocked by a creature, that creature loses all abilities until end of turn. So this mostly is just a short sword. Those are not generally very good, although again, the set's kind of worse, so it might be a little bit better than usual. It might be like a play like in the one from Innistrad Flashback, I actually liked a decent amount, so I think it might be that level, which is actually slightly better than I've rated it here, but this is just sort of assuming that it's a normal set instead of a low power level set. Ent Drought Basin. 2 colorless mana for an artifact. You can pay X and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature with power X, activate only as a sorcery. Oh man, this is just the slowest, most garbage, I don't know. Hey, if you can put if you have a 0, there's I don't you could pay 0 to put a +1/+1 counter on your O3 defender. So think about that. Actually, we haven't seen the O3 defender yet. We're gonna get there, but when we get there, that's the wombo combo. You can put 1 counter for no mana. Yeah, I'm so out. I honestly kind of think this card would be sort of interesting if you could activate it at instant speed. I don't know why they didn't let you do that. I mean, it doesn't make any sense from a flavor perspective at all. But it would be kind of fun if they just let it's all right. Well, I want to turn my 4/4 into a 5/5. I guess I'll just pay 4 mana to do that. It's yeah, no, actually, that's I'm gonna pass real quick. Glamdring. 2 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets first strike and has +1/+0 for each instant or sorcery card in your graveyard. It is equipped for 3. When a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to that damage without paying its mana cost. So I think this is considerably worse than the other mythic equipment, although I think it is maybe still playable. Just equip if you reverse this, if you go 3 mana to play, 2 mana to equip, I'm much higher on it. It's just the difference between the way that it's templated as equip for 3 versus equip for 2. It's so different because what your opponent's going to do most of the time, when I think about an equipment, how I evaluate it is, okay, so my opponent's going to use their removal spell to blow me out the first time I try to equip this. That's always going to happen. That's just that's basically how I think about these cards, because it pretty much does. You basically, unless you want to pay 5 mana for this, then, maybe you can, whatever. But at the time it's 5 mana, it's it's worse then, right? So, yeah. I just kind of assume that I'm going to get, tempo blown out the first time. And then the second time, I'm actually going to get to equip an attack. So, having to pay the 3 twice is just, so much more than having to pay the 2 twice. Where I'm just kind of it's just so much worse if you get blown out. And you have to have like the synergies, and then the spells deck. Do you really want an equipment? Because then it's taking up one of your spell slots, and you need creatures too to like use the equipment. But I guess there are spells that are creatures. I think there's probably a deck that makes this actually like really good, but I'm starting low on it. Horn of Gondor. 3 mana for a legendary artifact. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token, and you can pay 3 and tap it and create X 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of humans you control. Don't like it. Don't think it's good. Easy to disrupt. Yes, in a deck that's like all humans, it's like it's been brought up to me that you can only play this for 6. You pay this on turn 6, and you go 3 mana, and then you tap it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that could threaten to take over the game for sure. It certainly could. But I'm like, is that actually like even like? Because then you're just playing 6 mana for 3 1/1s. I guess that's it. Again, that's if you don't have any other humans. You probably have at least one other human, so maybe getting a little bit more. And I don't know. I have I have so many problems with this. I just don't. I think it's just so slow. Like again, maybe there's a deck that wants it and like actively like can make it good. But I just like 3 mana 1/1 is so bad. And like on 4 mana, you're gonna make another 1/1. That's not good. So, yeah. Horn of the Mark. 2 mana for an artifact. Whenever 2 or more creatures you control attack a player, look at the top 5 cards of your library. Remove your creature card from among them, put it in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is obviously good if you're attacking, but like, I don't know. You're playing 2 mana and like a card for this, and that's preventing you from attacking. A lot of times, like it's just tough. I could see this being better than like it looks. Like it kind of looks kind of bad, but I could see it definitely playing out better than this. I just kind of like I'm pessimistic, about this and many things. So that's where I'm starting with it. Inherited Envelope. 3 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you, and you can tap to add 1 mana of any color. So it's a manalith. Generally, manaliths are not very good. I don't think that the ring tempting you is good enough to make this actually playable. So, still don't like it very much. Lembas. 2 mana for a food. When it enters the battlefield, scry 1, then draw a card, so it replaces itself. You can pay 2 and sacrifice it to gain 3 life like any other food, and when you it's put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you shuffle it back into your library. So, interesting little card here. Certainly synergizes with all of the things ever. Like it synergizes. Like this just has so many synergies in the set that I love. We do love the Lembas here. We're Lembas believers. Nothing absurd. Not saying it's like a B, but it goes in I think every deck pretty much. Maybe not blue red, but definitely goes in black white. I don't know. I think it goes in a lot of places. Mirror of Galadriel. 2 mana for an artifact. You can pay 5 and scry 1, then draw a card. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. No thanks. It only draws you a card for like the best case scenario is this draws you like a card for 3 mana, which is not even good. So I don't know. just so out on this. Mithril Coat. 3 mana for legendary equipment. Flash Indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, you attach it to target legendary creature you control. Equipped creature has Indestructible, and you equip it for 3. So 3 mana to give Indestructible is not a good rate, and it is not a good rate to equip for 3 with Indestructible. So I think this card's just really bad, and you shouldn't play it. And you will lose to it once or twice, but that's okay. The One Ring to rule them all. 4 mana for an artifact, Indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring. You can tap it to put a burden counter on the One Ring, then you draw a card for each burden counter on the One Ring. So you can only draw when you actually tap it, which is really bad because it means you have to keep like you just die in like 4 turns from this. If you yes, the first one is like this card's just so bad and limited. You're not going to be able to kill your opponent fast enough for this to ever be good, and you are just going to die. Like yes, it gives you protection, but no, like it just doesn't give you like enough protection. Like it's just like your opponent just has to survive for like 5 turns and they just win the game. So because like it just like, if you ever draw with it, it just punishes you for the whole rest of the game. It's just not worth it at all. Palantir of Othrak. 3 mana for an artifact. At the beginning of your end step, put an influence counter on Pether Anthrax, then and scry 2. Then, target opponent may have you draw a card. If that player does not, you mill X cards, where X is the number of influence counters on Pattern of Arthrak, and that player loses life equal to the total mana value of those cards. So this card's really interesting. This is a very, very interesting card. I like this card a decent amount. So basically, like, what I think you're supposed to do is always put your most expensive spell on top of your library. Like, just no matter what it is. Like no matter what, in your top 2 cards, you're always supposed to put your most expensive spell on top. I think you're also, like, kind of always supposed to put your, like, a land second, like, if you can. It depends on what you want. What you should not do is just, like, scry normally. That is not what I would do with this. I would always put my most expensive spell on top, because, like, yes, maybe they make you draw it, but, like, oh no, I drew a card that's expensive, like, that, but I'm also drawing a card, so it means I'm more likely to draw lands, you know? Like, so I don't know. Like, I think most of the time your opponent's going to be like, alright, take it, and then you hit them for, like, 3 or 4. Like, I like that this puts a lot of pressure on your opponent. It generates a lot of value. You are going to scry every turn. Sometimes they are, like, taking damage, sometimes they're not. Honestly, it's possible that you mill out before this kills your opponent. Like, maybe they just mill you out, but I don't think so. Maybe. Vial of Galadriel. 3 mana for an artifact. If you draw a card while you have no cards in hand, you draw 2 cards instead. If you would gain life while you have 5 or less life, you gain twice as much life instead. And you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. So this is an actually good manalith. That, like, pays you out off for having, like, no cards in hand, which is not as easy to do as I think a lot of people think. Like, you do, like, need to have uses for all of your cards, which it's not completely trivial. But yes, you do just start drawing 2 on upkeep sometimes, like, at certain points of the game, which is nice. It's really good. Like, it's a really good upside to have, and this does help you do that by being a mana rock and, like, ramping you. So I do like it quite a bit, but I don't. It still is a mana rock. That's kind of my take on this card. The life gain thing, like, is The Shire Scarecrow. Here it is. 2 mana for an 0/3 defender. Add 1 mana of any color. Activate only once each turn. This is the target that is going to be pitched into Mount Doom, as we'll see shortly. It's just not. Like, the guy from Dominaria United wasn't even that good. Where is he? Wait, I have him. Wait, hold on. 1 second. Alright, found him. Here he is. Here he is, Salvage Mana Worker. My king. Or whatever, I don't know. This is just like, is this your guy? This actually, funnily enough, this probably would have been better in DMU than Salvage Mana Worker, because it has Defender, which was actually relevant then. But yeah, this card's not very good fixing. Sting, the Glinting Dagger. 2 colorless mana for a equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has haste. At the beginning of each combat, untap enchanted creature. Equipped creature is blocking as first strike as long as it's blocking or is being blocked by a goblin or orc. So yeah, I mean, it's solid. Like, I don't think it's anything special. +1/+1 and haste is sort of okay. Or aced if you're like me and can't spell. It's usually, like, check these over, but, like, sometimes like, my computer just doesn't. Sometimes I just can't see. But yeah, I mean, it's just, like, I'm very skeptical of Equip 2. Like, I'm very skeptical innately of it. Like, it has to prove to me that it's good. Stone of Eric. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. Play 2 and sacrifice Stone of Eric. Exile target player's graveyard. Draw a card. Nope, not for limited. Wizard's Rockets. 1 colorless mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield tapped, you can pay X and sacrifice it, add X mana in any combination of colors. And when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. So there's actually, like, a lot. Again, like, all of the power in this set is in the multicolor rares, basically. And so this allows you to play a lot those much easier than a lot of other fixing does. And, like, I kind of like that. I don't know. I find this to be interesting. Like, I like the card. I'm a fan of it. Our first land, Berdur. It is a legendary land. There's a cycle of these that enter tapped unless you control a legendary creature. This one adds black, and you can pay XX black and tap it to amass Oryx X. Activate only if a creature died this turn. So this one actually gives you board presence, which is usually very, very good on lands. Any land that can, like, make creatures is tends to be really strong. So this I have high hopes for this, even though it does require something to die. I think that's not as hard as maybe some people think that it might be. Um, that's it. Just a solid value land. Great Hall to the Citadel. You can add a colorless mana, or you can pay 1 and add 2 mana of any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast legendary spells, which again is most of the spells that you actually want to be casting, at least the multicolor ones, which I think you're going to be able to splash with this. I don't know. There's some interesting utility there, and I think there is a deck that sort of wants this stuff. I don't think it's what you're going to want to be doing like day one, but eventually, sure. The Grey Havens. It is a legendary land. You can, when it enters the battlefield, scry 1, you add a colorless mana, or you can tap to add 1 mana of any color among legendary creatures in your graveyard. But how will you get legendary creatures into your graveyard? I guess that's the question, right? Like this, the thing about lands is they want you to tap, like you don't care as much about the colored mana later, and you care about the colored mana earlier, and this kind of works in the reverse. Like you're going to get the colored mana late, and you're going to have a colorless mana early. So it is a low downside land, but like it just is not that good. Minas Tirith. It's the white of the cycle, and so its ability is you can pay 1 and a white to draw a card. You can activate only if to attack with 2 or more creatures this turn. This is really like good to me. Like just being able to like pay 2 to reload when you're attacking, like that's really strong. I think. If you're not attacking, obviously it's bad. But like again, it's just a value land. It's a straight up value land. All of the value lands are solid cards, and you're gonna pick them over. Like pretty much, like the red one you won't, but like this one you'll pick over like bad cards, you know. This is the one you're not gonna pick over this because this one has 4 or 3 in a red to exile 3 cards from your graveyard and create 2 treasure tokens, which is not a particularly relevant ability unless you're casting the Balrog, and then it's really good. So if you have the Balrog, you can take this card. I don't know how you're getting the Balrog, but sure, that could happen. Yeah. Mount Doom. Legendary land. You can pay 1 life to add red or black. You can pay 1 black-red and deals 1 damage to each opponent, or you can pay 5 black-red and sacrifice it and another legendary artifact. Choose up to 2 creatures and destroy the rest. Activate only as a sorcery. Flavor moment. Yeah, I mean, this card's like, whatever. I mean, the piece that's really bad about this is that you always have to pay life for your fixing, which is bad to terrible. But at least, like, you have the buyout of, like, you start paying your opponent for 1 and, like, on turn 8 or whatever. Like, that's kind of a clock, sort of real. It'll come up sometimes, rarely, but, I mean, like, if you can activate the other ability, which is not the most difficult thing to do if you have, like, the Scarecrow guy, I don't know, it's, like, maybe an okay land, basically. I'm never gonna take it too high, but maybe okay. Rivendell. Blue version of the land cycle. You can pay 1 and a blue and tap it to scry 2. Activate only if you control a legendary creature. This one seems really strong to me. Scry 2 is similar to drawing a card, although by the time you're activating it, and yeah, I mean, like, you're just always gonna have legendary, I think. So it's just gonna be really super easy to activate. The Shire, the green of the cycle. 1 and a green tap to untap creature you control, create a food token. This is even lower cost, and you just make a food token. Like, this is really busted. Like, this seems like the best one to me. Like, there's just no cost to putting the other ones. Like, there's maybe like not the most relevant. Like, there's actually things you have to do to like have them do something. This one you don't have to do anything. You just like pass, and your opponent's like, oh, I guess they're making like a food token every turn that they can maybe sacrifice to stuff. I don't know. It just seems really insane to me. And the last card in the set, Shire Terrace. You can tap to add colorless, or you can pay 1 tap to sacrifice it to search your library for basically any card, put it into the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So a different spin on Evolving Wilds, probably a little bit worse than Evolving Wilds most of the time. Sometimes, like, again, on turn like 4, if you draw this, it's better than Evolving Wilds. If you have it in your opening hand, it's worse. If you have it on turn 8, it's worse. So during the mid game, it's better, but most of the time it's going to just be worse. So I think it's kind of a little bit of a worse Evolving Wilds. Like, I think you're probably still supposed to play it probably maybe. I don't actually know if you're still supposed to play this in your 2-color decks. If Rolling Wilds, you're definitely supposed to play in your 2-color decks, but this one is much more cost if you like don't need it. You know. All right, and that's it for the set review. So hope you enjoyed. Hope you gained some enlightening intel from it that will all be washed away and on Tuesday. But if you did, thanks for watching. See you.